Welcome to another edition of Sound Off Extra here on the official YouTube channel for the Solomonster Sounds Off Wrestling Podcast. This is some quick Raw thoughts from last night's Battle for Christmas themed edition of Monday Night Raw. It is Christmas Eve here today, December 24th, 2013. I am the Solomonster. I want to wish everybody out there who celebrates a Merry Christmas here if you are gearing up for the big day tomorrow and hoping that Santa brings you some nice gifts. He was not so kind to the rest of us last night. If you are a fan of wrestling, you got 9 matches on this show. They were not all good. In fact, there were only 2 really worth watching, both 6-man tags. Mark Henry, as Good Santa, saved Christmas for all the little snot-nosed brats out there by beating Bad Santa, played by Damian Sandow, not Billy Bob Thornton. Although, if it was played by Billy Bob, I'm sure this would have been infinitely more entertaining. Otherwise, the only noteworthy thing on this show was the announcement that Batista is coming back, which you already knew if you listened to episode 306 of the Sound Off this past weekend. The rest of the show was just some holiday comedy, stuff like that for the kids. We've got one more holiday show to get through next week for New Year's before things get back to normal. I have no idea what next week's show is going to look like because they're doing a split crew and advertising guys like John Cena and Randy Orton. Not for Raw, but for a house show in Toronto. I think Cody and Goldust are advertised for that show. Big Show and Kane are advertised. So basically, the crew that we here in New York are getting at Madison Square Garden this Thursday for the house show, that's the crew that is going to be in Toronto next week. Punk and Bryan and The Shield and the Wyatts. I know they're going to be in Chicago on Thursday when they are at the Garden at the same time, so yeah, things could always change, but that's the plan as of right now. I don't know why you would do that when you have a live Raw show to do, but there may be quite a number of stars missing from the show next week, but I don't make those decisions, so I don't know why they're doing that. I'm not going through the entire show. There really is no point to doing that. Just a handful of things here that I tweeted about during the show and that caught my eye. We got Libertarian Kane in a Santa hat giving out candy canes to kids at ringside when the show opened. So, Candy Cane, or Christmas Creature. We didn't get the annual Jerry Lawler Christmas Creature reference on commentary, which was a disappointment. Lawler does not work Tuesdays, which is when the show is taped, so he was MIA this week. We were left with Michael Cole and JBL. We also had a Divas match. Team Total Divas. Natalya, Eva Marie, the Funkadactyls, and the Bellas. No JoJo. So I think JoJo may be wish well in her future endeavors in the very near future if she hasn't already been, which is kind of a shame. I don't watch Total Divas. I saw the very first 3 episodes from season 1, and I pretty much called it quits at that point. But from what I could tell, you know, JoJo has more athletic potential than Eva Marie does. I think we know why Eva Marie is getting pushed and JoJo is not, so that's too bad. Anyway, they beat Oksana, Caitlyn, Alicia Fox, Tamina, Summer Rae, and Vicky Guerrero. And Natalya beat Oksana with the sharpshooter. Diva Stopwatch had this at 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Match was an insult. I mean, the match itself, but just the idea that you would have 10 or 12, I think it was 12 women out there in this gigantic tag match that doesn't even go 4 minutes. You know, what's the point? Really, what's the point? The best part of the whole thing was AJ Lee on commentary making fun of Michael Cole for somehow confusing Summer Rae with Rosa Mendez, who wasn't even in the damn match. That's an even bigger insult to me than the match itself. The match itself sucked. But comparing Rosa Mendez to Summer Rae, anybody who watches her on NXT, and even, you know, 1 or 2 matches she's had on Raw, she hasn't had very many matches on the main roster. She's actually really good. And she's got a lot of potential to get even better. Rosa Mendez has been in WWE for probably 5 years now. And she sucks. You know, she may be easy on the eyes, but she has no business being in a wrestling ring. So this notion that they would compare Summer to Rosa, it's quite the faux pas there. We had Big Show playing the New Year's baby in this promo that they had for next week's Raw. That's like the big New Year's edition of Raw, New Year's Eve edition of Raw. And they thought it would be funny to have the Big Show dressed up in nothing but a diaper. So this was WrestleMania 21 all over again when Big Show did that sumo match with Akibono. That's a vision. I still, to this day, I can't get the image in my head, out of my head, of Big Show getting knocked out of the ring in that sumo match, and there's this shot of him with his legs spread wide open. Oh my God. This was, my eyes cannot unsee what I saw here in this segment. And keep in mind, this is the same man who headlined Survivor Series a month ago for the WWE Championship. And here he is on this show in a diaper, sucking on a bottle. So, it's no wonder people can't take these challengers seriously for the title. Every now and then, they'll actually get it right and they'll promote somebody that people can get behind. But the fact that Survivor Series this year did the lowest buy rate, I think, in Survivor Series history, which to me, since Vince McMahon almost killed Survivor Series a few years ago, could very well mean the end for Survivor Series next year. It really should come as a surprise to nobody when you see stuff like this. We had a singing contest. This was more of that holiday crap that they like to do, and Xavier Woods and R-Truth sang, and they weren't bad. 2MB was there. I think Heath Slater he's out for a while. He's not hurt. I think there's some stuff that he's dealing with. So we had Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre, another severely underutilized talent on WWE's roster. You can look up and down this show, in fact, and find at least 3 or 4 different guys that would fit that bill. Drew McIntyre, they've done nothing with. They've dropped the ball on him. I don't even know if he's got the same passion that he used to have. He just goes out there. He's a complete bum. He's a fool. Then we have Dolph Ziggler on this show in a North Pole. Well, they didn't call it a North Pole. I think they should have called it a North Pole match. They called it a present on a pole or some BS like that. And he lost again to Fandango. So much for the storyline they started the week before, where they said, on the app, Dolph did an interview where he acknowledged that he's been on a losing streak and things have just sucked for him lately and he's going to turn things around. And he went and he beat Fandango last week, and then this week, right back to losing again. And he's way at the top there. I mean, he's right at the head of the pack as far as underutilized guys who should be in a much better position than they're in. And then you look at Wade Barrett, another one. They got another Bad News Barrett skit on the show. This gimmick, this character is just dying a death. It is a complete waste of this guy. I don't know. Let's sit in a room and come up with 5 other ideas for this guy. I'm sure whatever 5 ideas we come up with in an hour are going to be a lot better than what they're giving us here. Is it really that hard to come up with something worthwhile for this guy to do? And the thing is, Drew McIntyre never had the chance to be at a main event level position. I remember matches that he would have back in developmental back in the day, and there was a match, you can find it I'm sure on YouTube from several years ago. It was him as a babyface down in FCW against Sheamus, who may have even been still going by Sheamus O'Shaughnessy at that point, and they had a great match. And you would watch that match and say, okay, both these guys are going places, and Sheamus became a big star, and Drew went nowhere. And I know that back in the day there was some stuff with him and Tiffany, his ex-wife, and he got in some trouble for that. But that was years ago. That doesn't mean the guy still doesn't have the same talent that he had back then, but his career was pretty much, it hit the skids at that point, and it's never recovered. And then you look at a guy like Wade Barrett, who was hot coming out of that Nexus storyline back in 2010. He even headlined some pay-per-views back then. He wrestled for the championship. He never won the title. And it seems like ever since then, it's just been this steady decline. He won the Intercontinental title at one point. Didn't mean anything for his career. He still lost all the time. And now, they just don't know what to do with the guy. He can talk. He can wrestle. He's big. He's not a small man. You don't have to fake it. You don't have to pretend like, let's pretend this guy is tough. The guy's nose goes in 5 different directions. He used to be a bare knuckles fighter. That's pretty tough. You don't have to sell people on that. So that's one of the things I look at this show, and it just makes me shake my head, because there's guys, it's one thing this week, everything is played for comedy, but what about 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now? These guys are going to be in the same positions. Drew McIntyre is going to be a goof. Dolph Ziggler is going to be losing matches. And Wade Barrett's going to be standing at a podium doing crappy comedy that's scripted for him. And that's one of the things in 2014 that I'd like to see change. I'd like to see some of these guys get a shot, so 2 or 3 years from now, when WrestleMania rolls around, we won't have to worry about bringing back Batista and Hogan and Brock and Undertaker to sell the show. Maybe Wade Barrett or Dolph Ziggler or people like that can finally be in a position where they can help carry the load. It's never going to happen if you keep booking these guys like this. But the singing contest was won by Santino and Khali. Khali, no, there's nobody better in WWE at being awful than the great Khali. He doesn't even have to try that hard. He just is. But he's so bad, he's good. No rhythm whatsoever. But the fans voted for them, so they won the contest. And this 2 6-man tag matches really were the highlight of this show. The Wyatt family beat Goldust, Cody, and Daniel Bryan. Bray Wyatt pinned Cody with Sister Abigail, which looks awesome. I love it when he hits that move. And, you know, same things that we've been seeing from these guys for weeks now. I think at some point you run the risk of just burning people out. It just feels like we're seeing the same combination of guys over and over again. I love the Shield, for example. Shield 6-mans. I mean, every match they have is just, it's great. I love watching them. And the Wyatts, too, and Bryan and Goldust and Cody, they're all great. But I feel like they're relying on these guys because they don't know, either they don't know what to do, or they feel like they don't have the other guys who they can put in that ring and have the kind of matches that these guys can. And I refuse to believe, I mean, they have plenty of talented guys, but it goes to what I was just saying, they don't push them all the right way. So for now, I'm enjoying it, but at some point, we're going to get sick and tired of seeing, you know, the Shield against Goldust and Cody and Bryan, and the Usos with Punk against, you know, the Shield, and yeah, start changing it up a little bit here. But this was a good match, and CM Punk, John Cena, Big E, Langston were in the main event against the Shield. They beat the Shield by DQ. And this really was a showcase for Big E, and that's what I liked about this. Big E Langston is a guy who I can see, maybe not being the guy down the road, but he can be one of the guys. He's the Intercontinental Champion right now. What they're doing with him is very different than what they've done with guys like Wade Barrett, what they've done with guys like The Miz, Curtis Axel. When those guys held the Intercontinental title, which, believe it or not, at one point actually meant something, they all lost. Either they lost or they never defended the title. They never appeared on TV. If they did, they didn't even have the belt with them. Big E is the first Intercontinental Champion, the first Intercontinental or U.S. Champion in a while to actually win the title and then be booked to defend his title and win and be made to look strong. He's already defended the title a bunch of times. He'll meet Fandango for the title on the New Year's Raw next week. It looked like maybe they're even building to something with Big E and Roman Reigns down the road. They've been giving us some teases of that. But Big E hit his move on Dean Ambrose when the rest of the Shield attacked. That caused the DQ. So they didn't give him the pinfall win here. But when the show was over, they played Cena's music, they played Punk's music, but they ended with Big E's music. And it was funny because you could see Cena kind of mouthing under his breath. You know, Big E was posing and going crazy. He was so happy to be in there. And Cena's like, you know, come over here, you big goof. And he wanted to raise his arm, and they all posed, and the show went off the air. And it works to Big E's advantage to be good friends with John Cena. And if the reason that Big E is getting such a push is because of his friendship with Cena, I'm okay with that. Because I think Big E's got something. I like him. I think he's got talent. The fans are getting into him. And he's a good wrestler. He's got this explosiveness about him for a big guy. I don't know, I've said this before, I don't know why they don't bring the 5-count gimmick that he was using in NXT up to the main roster. It's like every guy has their own trademark, their own catchphrase or crowd chant or something like that. For Big E, I think that might be the one thing that kind of gets him over the hump. As over as he's getting, he could be that much more over if he had the crowd chanting something like that. Again, he comes out, his theme music is 5. I think that might be the name of his song. And to most fans who wouldn't know him from NXT, they probably don't even have any concept of why his theme song is called 5. But anyway, if that's why he's getting the big push, I don't care. That's fine. I'd rather somebody like Big E get a push because they know somebody or they're friendly with somebody than somebody who has no talent at all. And we've seen that plenty of times in wrestling. Believe me, nepotism, favoritism, if you've got a son or a daughter, kind of giving them a push. Look at a guy like Hogan. When Hogan went over to WCW in the mid-90s, look at the cast of characters he brought over with him. From Beefcake to Knobs to Duggan to Earthquake to Kamala. All of these guys that he worked with previously, that he was friendly with, who, I mean, brought down the quality of the in-ring stuff in WCW, because that was one of the things that WCW at the time had going for it, was you could have some great matches with some great wrestlers, but nope, can't have that. So you had guys like Stunning Steve Austin shuffled off to the side in favor of these, you know, WWE old guys, basically. And I still remember, I think there was a Starrcade show that Hogan main evented. Hogan headlined a Starrcade against Brutus Beefcake as the Butcher or Zodiac or whatever crappy character he was playing at the time. The fact that Beefcake was in a Starrcade main event, simply because he was good friends with Hulk Hogan is ridiculous. I mean, let's be honest here. So a guy like Big E getting a push because he's friends with Cena, if that's what's going on here, I'm fine with that. He actually has talent, so I can excuse that. The big news on the show, though, was the Batista video package. His return has been officially announced for January 20th on Monday Night Raw, 6 days before the Royal Rumble. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder, did they panic? Did they have that video inserted into the show in the last couple of days and change their plans? Maybe Batista was going to be a surprise in the Rumble match. But it appears the video was always scheduled to air on the show. And his return had been scheduled for the Go Home Raw before the Rumble all along, as a way to pop a big number for that week's show. Because TV ratings for them right now, especially in the midst of these TV rights negotiations that they're having with USA, and that's going to be one of the two big stories to follow in WWE in 2014, how things shake out with their TV rights and how things go with the new network, which is going to be launching very early in the year. Those two things they will dictate the future of this company for next year and beyond. So they're trying to do what they can to keep ratings up, and I guess they figure that's one way to do that, and also bolster interest in the Royal Rumble. If it were me, though, I like what they did actually with Rob Van Dam and even John Cena, you could say. When Rob Van Dam came back, they put these vignettes on television for weeks, hyping that RVD was coming back. But he was coming back at Money in the Bank. And they never put him on Raw. They never put him on SmackDown. They didn't want to spoil it. I mean, yes, he had been in TNA, but most WWE fans didn't know that, and they hadn't seen him in like 4 years. And it was a big deal. I was in Philadelphia for Money in the Bank when he came out. Huge reaction. People going crazy. It was a big homecoming for him. And it was great. For Cena, when he came back from elbow surgery, they never put Cena on TV. They resisted. They never put him on Raw. They saved him for Hell in a Cell. He came out. He beat Del Rio for the world title. And that's probably the reason why Hell in a Cell didn't completely bomb this year. I think maybe Hell in a Cell this year did slightly better than the previous year. That was the one pay-per-view of the last 3 or 4 that just didn't completely bomb. And I'm sure that had nothing to do with Punk and Bryan and Orton and all those guys. If anything, it had to do with maybe Shawn Michaels being on the show as a guest referee, but I think it had more to do with saving John Cena's comeback for that show. So probably would have done the same with Batista. Put the videos on TV, right? The secret's already out. You can't put the cat back in the bag or the genie in the bottle, but put these videos out there, but save him for the Rumble and say, listen, Batista's coming back. He's coming back at the Rumble, in the Rumble. Get ready. The guy's been gone almost 4 years, but they want him on Raw, so that's where he'll be. It'd be nice to see him mix it up with some new guys. There really aren't that many new guys, though, at his level to mix it up with, which is probably an indictment on the job WWE has done of getting guys over at that level. There have been some guys who have been on the cusp of something big or on the cusp of being in that main event picture, and then they just get the rug kind of swept out from underneath their feet. You've got John Cena, Randy Orton, Triple H, Undertaker, CM Punk, even Daniel Bryan. All these guys have wrestled Batista before, at least once, if not multiple times. People may not remember his match with Daniel Bryan. They wrestled. It was a beat-the-clock match on Raw only a few weeks before Batista's last match against John Cena at Over the Limit. And they put Bryan over really strong in that match. He was still this NXT nerdy rookie at the time. Miz was his protege. But they really put him over strong. He hung in there with the big guy for over 5 minutes. But beyond those guys, I mean, who do you have? Who can you match Batista up with that he hasn't already worked with before? You have Brock Lesnar. Lesnar and Batista, I guess, could be something, but I don't see it happening. I don't see them doing it. The Shield. The Shield would be the only other kind of newish guys that I could see them doing something with them and Batista. Maybe Roman Reigns. There's nobody else for him to believably work with. Ryback's dead. I have no interest in seeing that. Barrett, Ziggler, no. Sheamus, no. I have no interest in that, and it's going to be a while before we see Sheamus. He's still hurt. I figure Big Dave is either winning the Rumble and wrestling Orton for the title at WrestleMania. That seems to be the plan. You know, if you go to some of the more reliable websites, they're saying the plan had been for Batista to win the Rumble and then challenge for the title at WrestleMania. Or they could go in a different direction. The only other scenario that I could see as being the most likely, other than Batista winning the Rumble, getting the title shot against Orton, would be if they go forward with this storyline of there being a split in the Authority, or Vince doesn't like how power hungry his brother-in-law. Vince McMahon does have a brother, by the way, Rod McMahon, who has nothing to do with wrestling. I think he works and lives down in Texas. All these years later, I'm still waiting for them to introduce Rod McMahon into these storylines. But anyway, his son-in-law, Triple H, and Stephanie, if he doesn't like how power hungry they're getting and he wants to wrestle control of the company back from them, he gets a surrogate. Maybe Batista is that surrogate and he wrestles Triple H for control of the company at WrestleMania. I'm sure Batista would love to wrestle his good buddy again, Triple H. They've had a lot of battles before. So I think those are the two most likely scenarios for Batista, but we'll see. Who knows? Maybe there's somebody I'm not thinking of on the active roster who they plug in there for him to work with, but I see those two scenarios being the most likely for him at this point. And that was Raw. The battle for Christmas. Christmas is saved. So all you little kids out there listening to this right now who want gifts, you can thank Mark Henry, the Kool-Aid Man, for that. You can listen to full episodes of the Solomonster Sounds Off. They go up every week, normally on Sunday afternoons. They are posted on the Solomonster.com. You can also find them on iTunes or in Stitcher Radio. You can stream the show there and add us to your playlist. Follow me on Twitter at Solomonster. I'm always live tweeting during Raws and pay-per-views and all that good stuff. So follow me on there. Subscribe to this channel as well. I try to get as many videos up as I can. I'll review shows, books, DVDs. So I hope to have more of these Sound Off extras up in the very near future. Check out episode 307 of the Sound Off this upcoming weekend. I'll have live thoughts from the WWE show at Madison Square Garden, thoughts on Impact, the Jeff Jarrett situation in TNA right now, more of your questions, this week in history, and a whole lot more. So please do check out the normal podcast this coming weekend. Until next time, whenever that may be well, stay safe, enjoy the rest of your holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, if I don't get another one of these videos up before then. And we'll see you back here real soon. Take care, guys.